Story 22, The Weeping Tree. The swamp behind Black Ridge High wasn't the sort of place anyone hung out, at least not after dark. It stretched for miles, thick with cypress trees and fog, the air heavy with the smell of wet earth and decay. Local kids called it Crow's Hollow, and they whispered that it was haunted. But like most teenagers, Ethan, Mason, and Lila didn't believe in old stories. It was early November when they decided to cut through the swamp after school, looking for a shortcut to the river. The air was warm, but the fog lay low and silver, and the ground squelched under their sneakers. Somewhere out there, frogs croaked and unseen things splashed through the black water. After nearly an hour of wandering, they saw it. An enormous weeping willow, its trunk wider than a car, its hanging branches brushing the dark surface of the swamp. The tree looked ancient, its roots twisting like veins across the ground. "Creepy," Lila muttered. "Cool," Mason said, tossing a rock toward the roots. It disappeared in the mud with a dull plop. They stood for a while, taking it in. The air felt colder near the tree, and the usual sounds of the swamp, the crickets, the frogs, had gone quiet. Then they heard it, faint, distant, unmistakable, crying. It drifted through the branches like wind through reeds, soft but human, rising and falling as if someone was sobbing beneath the ground. "Probably an animal," Ethan said, though his voice shook. Mason grinned. "Or a ghost. Maybe it's crying 'cause you're ugly." Ethan shoved him, muttering a curse, and they left soon after, laughing nervously as they pushed through the fog. The next morning, Mason slipped on the school steps and twisted his ankle badly. The same ankle Ethan had teased him about the week before during gym class. "Serves you right," Lila said, but her eyes darted toward Ethan, who looked pale. They joked about the willow, but something about it lingered in the back of their minds, the sound of that crying, the chill that came with it. By the weekend, curiosity got the better of them. They returned to the swamp, following the same winding path until the fog thickened and the dark shape of the willow loomed ahead. The air was heavier this time, as if the swamp itself were holding its breath. Lila stepped closer, brushing aside the low-hanging branches. Beneath the tree, the mud looked disturbed, rippled like something had been moving underneath. The crying had started again, soft, mournful, echoing from nowhere and everywhere. "Okay," Mason said, half grinning. "Let's test it. Let's make a wish." "A wish?" Ethan asked. "Yeah. What if it's like some cursed wishing tree? I wish for a pizza." He waited. Nothing happened but a small splash as something dropped from the branches into the swamp water. Mason laughed, but the sound came out forced. Then Lila said quietly, "What if we wished for something mean? Like, what if the crying was listening?" They all looked at each other. Ethan smirked. "Fine. I wish Miss Callahan would get sick so we don't have to take the science test." Lila frowned. "Don't be awful." "Relax, it's just a joke." But as they turned to leave, a gust of cold wind tore through the clearing, whipping the willow branches violently. The crying grew louder for just a moment, then stopped. The swamp went silent again. Monday morning, their science teacher didn't show up. The principal announced that Miss Callahan had come down with a sudden illness, something strange that no doctor could name. The substitute said she'd been found at home the night before, feverish and delirious, muttering about voices in the dark. The three friends sat in stunned silence. It's just a coincidence, Ethan said. Sure, Mason replied, but his voice trembled. Lila didn't say anything. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He kept hearing soft noises outside his window, like weeping carried on the wind. When he looked out, he could have sworn he saw something swaying far beyond the tree line, a silhouette of drooping branches in the dark. By morning, they all agreed to go back, to set things right, somehow. When they reached the swamp, the fog was thicker than ever, and the willow looked darker, almost black. The air smelled of rot and something sour, like old flowers. Lila spoke first. I think it's not just one ghost, she whispered. I think it's many. They're all trapped in here. As if in answer, the crying started again, louder this time, layered with dozens of faint voices, whispers, sobs, gasps that rose up from the mud beneath their feet. Ethan stepped forward. We didn't mean it, he said to the tree. We're sorry. The branches trembled. A cold breeze swirled around them, tugging at their clothes. Then silence. The fog lifted slightly, and the air grew warm again. The swamp sounds returned, the frogs, the crickets, the hum of distant insects. It felt almost normal. The three of them backed away slowly, never taking their eyes off the willow. When they reached the road, Mason let out a shaky laugh. Guess it's over, he said. But as they walked away, Lila glanced back one last time. For a moment, she thought she saw faces, pale and weeping, shifting in the folds of the willow's hanging branches. No one in Black Ridge ever talks much about the swamp, but sometimes, on still autumn nights, people walking near the edge swear they hear crying drifting from the trees. And those who've wronged someone lately, those who've spoken in cruelty or spite, claim the sound is louder for them. They say the willow remembers, and it never stops listening.